The armament and formation system in Rise of Kingdoms is a failure. But let's talk about what Lilith could potentially do to make this system actually viable for all players. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another Rise of Kingdoms gameplay episode from your very own Shappy Gaming. If you guys are new to the channel, my name's Shappy. I'm a sponsored Rise of Kingdoms content creator for the game of Rise of Kingdoms. And today we are discussing armaments, and more importantly, the armament and formation system combined, because if you remember, they both got released together. Now, I gotta be honest, guys. The armament formation system, when it launched, was kind of a failure. And it's a problem because armaments and formations are really, really important to any player's success in this game. And the challenge with them is they can give you a bonus of 12 plus each base stat, right? We're talking attack, we're talking defense, we're talking health, in addition to other things with these inscriptions, different skills. So the introduction of armaments and formation completely changed the structure of Rise of Kingdoms. And it also really impacted how the gameplay actually works. Someone who used to be really strong because they had great equipment and great commanders is no longer quite as strong because they don't have the best armaments. This also had an impact when we talk about KVK, because if you weren't winning KVKs, you weren't getting Otarks. And if you don't get Otarks, like me, who has had 0 Otarks in my entire Rise of Kingdoms career, then you are not getting legendary inscriptions. And if you don't have legendary inscriptions, you're at a major disadvantage. Now, all of these things come together to create what has become this pretty large problem when we talk about formations and armaments. First off, let's talk about the elephant in the room. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 formations. Let me know in the comment section below. How many are you actually using? Because if I had to ask, my guess is you are probably using maybe 3 to 5 of these. I think most players are probably using arch formation for their infantry. You're probably using wedge for everything else from a combat standpoint. You may have a ranged march, in which case you're using V formation. And if you have a city garrison, you're probably using tertio, and for gathering, you're using line formation. But the gross majority of these other formations are never being used. Lilith even went as far as rolling out one specifically for combo attack damage. We've got this great Delta formation. I'm willing to bet that 90% of you in the comments are not working on Delta formation. Even if you have Arthur in your lineup, which I'm sure you do, you're probably not working on Delta formation because, let's be honest, starting a new formation at this point in the game for the marginal benefit that you get over your existing formations, such as, I don't know, wedge, is probably not going to make you invest in it. So let's talk about why I think this system failed. First things first, the distinct formations do not have enough value to justify people using them. Let's take a good look at this testudo formation. I've never seen anyone use testudo formation, but it is very specific to user's troop takes 5% less damage while it has a shield. How many commanders in this game have a shield? Not very many. You've got Martel, you've got Alex. I think you have potentially Scipio can throw up a shield, but it's really only going to be infantry. And then all healing this troop receives is increased by 2.5%. Well, this doesn't matter so much when you then have circle formation, which is entirely focused on healing. So why would I use testudo formation? I don't see a lot of different marches that are going to have healing and shields based on the commanders that we've spoken about so far. So maybe Lilith will add another commander that has great shields, and it has a shield 95% of the time, in which case there's a 5% less damage taken altogether. But if you have that, why do you have the hollow square formation? So I think what Lilith really needs to do is figure out how to introduce diversity amongst the different formations you can have to have a mechanic that makes sense at scale, right? We have the wedge formation. That's great. It deals 5% more skill damage. Hollow Square needs to be a higher reduction of all damage taken. 2% doesn't cut it. It needs to be 3 to 5, I would say. That would be my take. This Testudo formation has no reason to exist because Hollow Square gives you all damage taken generally. So why would I only restrict it to when I have a shield? It doesn't make sense. The math does not math. So I think step one is let's go through and review all of the different formations that we have in the game and make them make sense, because there needs to be inherent value in utilizing them. Staggered formation, I love. It's great for farm filling. But is that really a mechanic we want to encourage in this game? I don't really know. But that's it for formations. You've heard my rant, you know my take. Let's talk about armaments and inscriptions. So for armaments, they have this very intriguing system where you go through and it's pretty much completely random. And what this means is you can go through, you can do your travels. When you do your travels, you have a chance at getting an armament that's epic tier, elite tier, or legendary. But there is no restrictions. What do I mean by that? Well, typically with epic equipment, you will have a cap on the amount of benefit you're getting for that equipment, right? Maybe you're getting a maximum of 2% bonus. With armaments, that's not the case. So there are many, many times where you can end up with epic armaments that are significantly better than legendary armaments. I was just going through for fun before this video. I have some armaments that are terrible. Then 1.5% archer attack. Why? Why on a legendary armament is this what we're getting? I feel that legendary armaments should maybe have a property that says everything is above 2%. If you get a cavalry attack, it's above 2%. And that makes it so as you re-roll, you're playing a better game of odds. And for the majority of players, your goal is to build a perfect set of legendary armaments. So that's just one take of how they might go about actually fixing these armaments. The other thing is Lilith has done a great job of creating really cool inscriptions. Really cool, right? You go to the codex, each piece has, I don't know, what is this, 15 different at least? No, it's closer to 20 different inscriptions that you can get. But for the gross majority of players, they're not even seeing these. You're not even seeing a lot of these inscriptions. And there is no way to effectively get them, even if you want the normal ones, right? Let's say I just want daring. There's no way for me to actually go about getting these beyond just luck from dispatch, luck from travel, or KVK in some instances. But even with KVK, there are restrictions there. You need an Otark to get anything legendary. Rare inscriptions are impossible to come by unless you go through luck. And then all of the rest of these you can't actually get. And the only way they've given us to actually go about getting these is through this superior shop with this inscription shard chest. And this is a great idea. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of it. But the fact of the matter is, they're only giving you one inscription for one piece of an armament. I can inscribe this to a banner. Great. How do I get inscriptions for my coins? How do I go about getting inscriptions for my other pieces, right? I want the instrument. I want the coin. The only thing you're giving me is I can potentially inscribe my scroll using a KVK one, or I could potentially get lucky and get it from the banner. But let's also be honest, guys. I personally have never, ever gotten an inscription from here. Not once. The majority of the time, I'm getting transmutation stones from here. And transmutation stones should never come here. For 180 recycled legendary armaments, I should never, ever be getting transmutation stones. And if I do, it should be a significant amount. 10? That's 2 transmutations. 2. I would much rather have 20 or 15. But the numbers here don't scale effectively, which is a big problem. So they've rolled out a new mechanic with flawed formations. They've added really, really cool functionalities through inscriptions. and made the inscriptions absolutely impossible to attain. And they have made it so even if you have the good inscriptions, historically you weren't able to swap from one formation to another. They've now improved that slightly, but it is still entirely luck-based. And if you do end up with a really good inscription, you have to transmute to get the right attributes that you might want. And you can transmute as many times as you really want, except you also need two currencies. You need transmutation stones and you need transmutation crystals. Well, transmutation crystals are not easy to come by. And so you now have an additional challenge of how do I go about getting these transmutation crystals? All of this to say, they've created a completely luck-based system in which, sure, everyone is made equal to a certain extent, but they've added mechanics which have major impacts on the game and gated them from people to be able to use them. I mean, just to put it into perspective, if you've won 5 KVKs, there's the potential for you to have 5 Hunter inscriptions. The Hunter inscription alone has the potential to make a huge difference in how you play the game. Because if you have the Hunter inscription, you're going to be dealing more damage. You're going to be having a better trade experience, which also has the impact of if you've lost a bunch of KVKs, the odds that you do end up getting an Otark is significantly low because the Otark system itself has limits on how many Otarks can be distributed when you win KVK. So they've also made it so you can't really get Otarks to get legendary inscriptions. Last but not least, let's say you ended up with a really good piece, but it has a terrible inscription. There is almost no way for you to get a double inscription. They've added the mechanic. It's great. There's almost no way for you to get it. You can't pay for it. You can't use transmutation crystals. You can't use Otarks. It does not exist. And if you do want to go and say stack 2 ones, right? Maybe I want health and attack. Can't do that either. You have to over-inscribe. So when you do go to inscribe, you replace what it already exists with something new. Which means that the whole mechanic of being able to add inscriptions doesn't really work. So I think there are a number of ways Lilith can fix this. They can make them more accessible. They can add events where you can get inscriptions specifically for the things that you can't get other inscriptions. They can remove the transmutation stones from this particular chest. They can make it so you do get a guaranteed inscription. And maybe it's not a great one, but at least it's something. And you don't have to save up 8 of these damn inscription shards to get a mediocre inscription here. I also think they should expand the KVK shop and make Otarks more attainable. Let me get an Otark for my 30 kill points instead of these stupid conquest coins that I can't have any use for. But let's actually take a look at what Lilith is doing, because I think this is important, right? Let's give them a chance. Maybe they've got it right. So in the most recent face-to-face with developers, this is what Lilith said. Lilith said, there was a question about armament transmutation. It's too difficult. Do you have plans to optimize this system? This is the perfect chance to fix it, Lilith. Their original plan was to implement an armament fusion system, which would work like this. If armament B has a valuable attribute, let's say cavalry attack 3.5%, you can fuse it with armament A, with a 50% chance to replace one of armament A's less valuable attributes. Maybe it's gold gathering speed. However, each of these attributes actually has a required slot. You can't have health and all damage, unfortunately. Which is an interesting mechanic. And their hope was that this would increase the value of armaments with only one good attribute. Sure. As they could be used to gradually improve your other armaments, which would in turn make armament events and chests more rewarding. Because let's be honest, no one's spending on their armament events right now, except for Chatsky. However, they've encountered a number of problems in the design stage. Currently, it's relatively easy to obtain an armament with a single 2.5% or either greater than 3% attribute. Sure, maybe not for a specific unit, but yeah, that's fair. And the max possible attribute bonus is only 3.5%. I would not make it larger than this. Again, armaments have completely changed the game. If this armament fusion system is launched, the gap between armament attributes will rapidly close, and many governors will be able to very quickly max out their armaments, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The whales are already maxing out their armaments. They're spending money to do it. But the mid spenders and the low spenders are the ones that don't have their maxed out armaments. We're not sure how receptive governors will be to such a balance shifting change. I think governors would be perfectly fine with a balance shifting change like this, because historically, you used to be able to have the best equipment even as a mid spender. It just took time. However, with the armament system, it's not about time. It's about luck, which is very, very hard to come by for someone like me. They also said transmutation stones, transmutation systems, and this new armament fusion feature would all be systems in service of armament attributes. And the coexistence of these separate systems runs the risk of making things overly complicated. I agree. Due to this, they haven't had a plan. Well, Lilith, here's the plan. I don't think this is the way. I think what you should do is for legendary armaments, you should restrict them to 2% or above. Don't give me 1.5% attack for archers. Please don't. And when I reroll, I'm rerolling within that 2 to 3.5% ratio, which actually makes it so there's the chance I can gradually improve my armaments over time using transmutation stones and crystals. You don't have to combine armaments. I think that goes contra to the feature you already have, where I can recycle my armaments and get coins and then buy them on the inscription shard chest, which again sucks. Your bigger problem, Lilith, is with inscriptions. No one can use the Delta formation because no one can get good inscriptions for it right away. And the only time where Delta is going to be better than something like Arch or Wedge is when you have the better inscriptions. So this has been my rant. This is a different kind of video for me. I've had a lot of thoughts lately about how they can improve Rise of Kingdoms and make things a little bit better. If you've enjoyed, do drop a like on this video and hit that subscribe button right over there, bottom right hand corner, and hit the bell so you get notified when new episodes come out. Thank you all. This has been a blast. Shappy out.